And welcome back to Rooted in Muddy Waters. Now, as I told y'all in the last two episodes, I still haven't got my intro down packed, so we're just gonna get into it. Again, welcome to Rooted in Muddy Waters podcast. I am Tamika Latoya. I am that I am. And yeah, we're gonna get into how I became a stay-at-home mom. That's what we're gonna get into this episode. I think I'm gonna title this episode "You Want Me to Do What Now?" So, because that was my response to my husband when he suggested that I no longer work and I stay home with the children. Yeah, let's get into it. All right, so, sorry, I got distracted. Today is my solar return, and my dad just sent me a long message and a picture. So, happy solar return to me. Anyway, let's get back on topic. So how I became a stay-at-home mom. So this happened probably about almost 5 years ago. Yeah, almost 5 years ago. I'm just not realizing that me giving birth to my son shifted and changed a lot of things for me, within me, with my family. And so yeah, 5 years ago, about 5 years ago, my son was born. And at the time I was working, but I was working it was like working at home job. So I was doing customer service for Apple at home. And yeah, and I had my son, and my daughter was still going to public school at the time. And it was just me and my son at home, and trying to work a job where it has to be quiet because you're getting calls, and also having a infant was not easy. It was not easy, and I also had began to not like the job anymore. And so, in order, making noises, sorry. And in order for us to live the way that we wanted to live and to be comfortable, and be able to do certain things, my husband had to go back on the road, which he was very much willing to do. Go back on the road and travel for work. And so he was like, well, you don't like this job anyway. I was on the verge of either quitting or being fired. And he's like, you don't like this job anyway. So, why don't you, you're already home. I've never been a daycare type mom. I'm not that mom. Never have been. And, I'm like, well, I'm not putting our son in daycare. Like, I told you that when I got pregnant. Like, I'm not doing it. And he was okay with that. Okay, yeah, no, we're not putting him in daycare. Instead of us doing that, I can go back on the road so that we can make more finances, and you can stay home with the children and do what you want to do, whether that be, work on your business. At the time I had a t-shirt business where I was making t-shirts and other things. And he's like, you can work on your business and take care of the children, and also homeschool. But we'll get into the homeschool conversation a little bit later in another episode. But yeah, that came up as well. So that's what we did. My husband went back on the road. He went back to traveling for work because it paid more money. It allowed him to be able to, take care of his family, to take care of us. It allowed me to be able to stay home with our children, where I knew that they were safe with me. And yeah, so that's basically how I became a stay-at-home mom. And to be honest, I didn't like working for other people anyway. So, It's kind of like always been in me. If it's something that just didn't align or fit with me, it would like always be a struggle. So, you know, it kind of worked out in the end. But yeah, so I've been a stay-at-home mom now for almost 5 years. And we about to get into this. We about to get into this journey. We're about to get into some struggles. If I'm looking down, that's my iPad. I told y'all. Like I gotta have some notes, because if not, I will be rambling and getting off a topic. So this is where we at. So I have been working since high school. I have been working since high school. Before I became a stay-at-home mom, I have been working since high school. I couldn't wait to get my first job, to start making my own money. And my first job was retail. And I've been working customer service, you know, assisting people, helping people since high school. And, you know, me coming into being a stay-at-home mom, and I was like, well, I don't know any other stay-at-home moms. I don't know anybody else that stays home and take care of their children. Everyone I know works. All my mom ever did was work. To my knowledge, that's all my grandmother did. You know, and I didn't know any women. I didn't know, you know, my close friends at the time, they didn't have any children, so they worked. And didn't really have a, you know, I know some stay-at-home moms now, but in the beginning I was like, what am I going to do with myself? You know, like, this is weird. Like, I don't know the one that does this. Like, what am I supposed to do all day? But those type of thoughts just came into my mind or whatever. And then I also was like very unsure like what that lifestyle would look like for me. You know, like, do he expect me to like be home cooking, cleaning, doing all the things all the time? Like, is that what he expected me to do? Which was not what his expectation was. His sole thing was he wanted me to be home with the children, and he also didn't want me to be stressed, right? He didn't want me to be stressed out. He didn't want me complaining and just ranting about this job that I hated and being in this situation that I didn't want to be in, being stressed out. And he wanted me to be home with our children. Those were the only expectations he had, like for me not to be stressed out and for me to just be home taking care of our children. And so again, like, I was just very unsure of what that lifestyle would look like for me. Like, you know, am I supposed to be like these people online? Am I supposed to be like these people on TV? Like, what stay-at-home mom? Like, what does that look like? And for me, what I've learned is that it looks like wherever the hell I wanted to look like. It can be me getting up early on a nice, what's today? Wednesday, and on my solo return, recording podcast episodes. And then waiting for the children to get up so I can cook them breakfast and we do whatever we're going to do the rest of the day. It could look like me getting up and prepping for homeschool for the day and waiting for them to get up so that we can start our day with homeschool. It can be us not being home at all and us being in a park for a couple hours a day, or going to museums, or, you know, it can be whatever I want it to be. It doesn't have to be a certain way. It doesn't have to be a specific way. It doesn't have to be a way that someone else is doing it. It can be any way that I freaking want it to be. And that's what I created. But it took time for me to do that, because again, like, this was weird for me. I had been working since I was in high school. All I ever saw was my mother work. You know, to my knowledge, that's all my grandmother, even when I was coming up, my grandmother was still working. You know, I was in high school and my grandmother was still working. So like, all I've ever seen the women around me do is work. My aunts work. All I have is my grandmother has is girls, but you know, all I've ever seen of the women around me is just work. You know, go to a job, clock in, punch in, you know, work there 8 hours, depending on the type of job. It might be a 12-hour shift job, you know, or a 10-hour shift job, and come home and cook and clean and yell at children and do it all over again, you know. And now that I know what I know, that's what, you know, certain powers want, is for us to not be home with our children. I understand it now, but that's all I ever knew, you know. So adjusting to being a stay-at-home mom, it wasn't really hard, but it did make me feel less than. And I'll tell you why. Because I was in the mind state of like, I'm not bringing in anything financial to this house, so I am not useful. And I think that's my first time saying that out loud in that way, but that's the way that Spirit is telling me I need to relay this message to you all. So I didn't feel useful because I wasn't bringing finances into the house. And so it made me think like, dang, like, is that, like, I bring more to the table than finances. Like, I bring more to this household than just finances. Why is it that I am equating my worth with how much money I bring into this house? Why is that? And I'm sure that I'm not the only woman that has done that. So why is that? Why do we equate our worth to the amount of finance that we gain? When one, what we think is finance isn't really finance, isn't really money, isn't really currency. I mean, it's currency, it's a type of currency, but the value of that, right? So like, why do we do that? Why did I do that? I don't know. Is it because that's all I knew? It's all I saw my mother do? Be the person that brought the finances into the house to take care of us, to make sure that the lights stay on? Is it because I myself had never seen a man take care of his family? And that's going to be a topic we're going to get into in another episode. We're going to talk about it. But is that why? And I'm glad I have the husband that I have, because I was able to go to him and have this conversation with him and let him know that I was feeling like I wasn't contributing to our household. That's how I felt. And you know what? It took my husband telling me. It took him sitting me down and was like, your job is the most important job. Your job is a job that you can't put a dollar on it. You can't put no type of dollar amount on it because it's priceless. And that job is to take care of our children, to raise our children, to protect our children. In a world where so much crap is happening to children, you can't put a dollar amount on that. You can't put any type of value on that because it's priceless. It's priceless. And so it literally took my husband saying that to me, that what you do is way more important than what I do. You're raising our children. You're teaching them. You're protecting them. You're making sure that they're safe. You're making sure that they're fed and that they have everything that they need. That job is way more important than mine. And a lot more stressful. And so it took my husband saying that to me to be like, dang, you're right. You're right. That job is way more important. That job is way more valuable. And it's a job that must be done, because if I'm not home raising my children, who the hell raising them? If I'm not teaching them, who the hell teaching them? If I'm not protecting them, who the hell protecting them? And I'm not saying that's all that I do as a stay-at-home mom. That's like, oh, I'm just focused on my children. No, but that is something, like, again, like, my husband had to actually say those words for me to realize that. And I think that it's just being in the culture of, like, women, like, having babies, because that's how I was with my first child, right? I was still working the same job I was working when I was in high school when I had her. And I worked up until the day I had her. And as soon as the doctors cut me loose from after my 6-week checkup, I went back to work. So me experiencing both of those experiences, right? My first child, I had to go back to work 6 weeks after having her, right? Because I had to make money. I had to take care of us, right? And now being in a situation where I am with someone, I married someone who is willing to do what needs to be done for me to be home with our children, and then for me to always be home with my son. I'm all he doesn't know any babysitters other than his uncles, my mom, his grandparents, like, you know, like his sister. All he knows is that I'm supposed to be home with him. I didn't miss any of the important memories with him. I missed some of those with my daughter. I missed a lot of those with my daughter. And so, again, I keep going back to that. It literally took this man saying this to me for me to realize, like, dang, like, I have it all messed up. It's not like I'm working a career. It's a job. And so the question that I'm getting now is, like, how did we step so far away from that? And I'm not saying that being a stay-at-home mom is always peaches and cream. Like, it's not always rainbows and strawberries. Like, it's not, whatever the saying is, it's not always peachy. I'm not saying that. Because sometimes, you know, they push my buttons, as I'm pretty sure all children do. I'm not saying that it's always good times over here. That's not what I'm saying. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I have to go in my room and close the door and get away from them, to take a break, to breathe. But I wouldn't change this, because I get to wake up to their beautiful faces every single day. And I get to create memories with them, to create a bond and a relationship with them. I get to be here for all the important things. I wouldn't trade that. And I know not everyone is in a situation where they're able to stay home with their children. I know that. I get that. Because I was once that woman. I was once that mom. I get that. Because we're constantly chasing the dollar, chasing money, or what we think is money. Like, we're constantly chasing that. And then we leave our children to fend for themselves, to raise themselves. We allow the internet to raise them. We allow society to raise them. Hmm. I feel like I got off of topic, but on topic. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like, again, I've experienced both. You know, had my first child, went back to work. As soon as I was able to go back to work, I gotta make some money, right? I did that. And with my son, I kind of did it too. You know, after I had him, I had to get back on the phones. I had to make some money. You know, but I'm married to someone who saw that I was stressing. The job was driving me crazy. The fact that, you know, our son was home and I'm also trying to be on the phone. So I'm like trying to make sure he stays quiet and he doesn't make any noise because I got to take these calls. Or, you know, he's crying while I'm on the phone. And, you know, I basically like, man, fuck these calls. And I'm going to go tend to my baby. And so then there's issues with work because you go, why were you not on the phone during this time? And I'm like, and they don't want to hear this shit. They don't want to hear, oh, well, you know, my baby was crying. He was upset. I had to, you know, get him quiet down so that, you know, they don't want to hear that. It was like, why don't you got a babysitter? You know, like they don't want to hear that. So, again, I've experienced it both. And I'm going to say that me being able to be home with my children, to be home with my son from birth to now, and to be home with my daughter through her teenage years, because her adolescent years, because for a girl, those are the years. Listen, talk about that too. Not this episode though. But to be home with them during this time in their life, and to be home with them during a time where the world just seems to be a very questionable place. When I say that, I mean everything that is going on in the world, whether that be this fucking pandemic, whether that be the things that are happening in schools, the way that teachers treat children in school, the way that children treat each other at school, you know, people going into schools and being allowed to do the things that they're doing in schools, the education or the lack thereof that the children are receiving in school. It's a lot. And so, you know, would I change this and the way that our life is? No, because I'm comfortable. I'm happy. And again, it's not to make it sound like being a stay-at-home mom is all peachy. It's not. Sometimes my children that I birthed, that I brought into this world, that came through me, sometimes these children drive me crazy. But what child doesn't? Hell, I'm pretty sure I drove my mama crazy. You know, like, what child doesn't? You know, and also being a stay-at-home mom has forced me to unpack a lot of my own shit about my own upbringing, my own childhood. You know, and my children need to, not only am I here to guide them and to teach them, they be teaching me, you know. they show me things like, dang, like, okay, I get that. I can see that. You know? So, you know, but yeah. I would say that, you know, something else that I did, and I kind of still do. I just hit my chin on the microphone. Anyway, something that I still do is I struggle with mom guilt and making time for myself. And I don't know if any other stay-at-home moms struggle with that. If you do, holler, let me know how you deal. But I do struggle with that. And so what I have been doing recently is at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, depending on what finances are looking like, depending on what I'm doing in my business, depending on what's going on with the children. I take a day to myself, and I take myself on a date. I go get my feet done. Sometimes I get my nails done, not all the time, but my feet get done. The feet's getting done. Just get my feet done, you know, might take myself out for lunch, you know, take a book with me, sit at the table by myself and eat my lunch. Sometimes I go to nice restaurants too, by myself, you know, and, you know, or I might go walking through the bookstore looking at books, you know, or, you know, I might just go sit at the park, sit by the water, and just be for a couple hours. And that helps me, you know, that helps me to, you know, just gives me my time away from my children, time away from my husband, and that gives him time to spend time with them because he's gone most of the time. And so that just, you know, it works. That's what works for us. For mama to go on a date, take herself on a date, once or twice a month. And then also my husband taking me on dates a couple times a month. You know, that works, because before I started doing that, I felt like I was going crazy. And I would have stressful days, and I would have days that I would cry. And, you know, I told my husband about one instance where I was so frustrated that I went in our bathroom and cried. And he was like, well, why are you crying? And I told him, and he was like, well, why didn't you tell me? Sorry, y'all. And I'm like, tell you for what? I'm not about to complain about this. These are my children. Yes, they drive me crazy sometimes. And yes, I had a moment, but I'm okay. He's like, well, I don't want you in the bathroom crying. He's like, so what can we do to make this better? Sinuses. Anyway, what can we do to make this better? And that's what we did. You know, so again, just grateful to have a partner, a husband, a relationship with someone who, one, listens to me, and is constantly making sure that my stress levels are super low. So I appreciate that, and I let him know that every day, that I appreciate that. So yeah, so being a stay-at-home mom, again, it's not always fun. You know, sometimes it's hard. You know, my children are 9 years apart. You know, I have a soon-to-be 5-year-old and a 14-year-old. So, you know, life. You know, it's not always fun. But as I said in my motherhood episode, like, I knew I wanted to be a mom before I knew I wanted to be anything else in this world. And, you know, in the beginning, you know, my viewpoint on motherhood is like, well, I'm going to do the opposite of what my mother did. You know, I was going to do the opposite of what she did. I wasn't going to do this. I wasn't going to do that. You know, I wasn't going to, you know, have these type of relationships with my children. I'm going to have this type of relationship with my children. That's how it was for me in the beginning. And then my daughter turned into a teenager. And I'm like, okay, all right, this shit is hard. You know, so again, it's not perfect. You know, it's not the shit you see on TV. It's not your expected type of stay-at-home mom. I'm not getting up every day cleaning that house from top to bottom. It's not what I'm doing. Don't do that either. I have specific days of the week that I clean. So, you know, specific days of the week that we do laundry. You know, like, I created, just like with my marriage, which, again, we'll talk about that in another episode. It's like, we come up in this space where society, right, has expectations of a woman and what she's supposed to do. Or the world has expectations on how, you know, you're supposed to raise children. Or they have certain expectation as to, you know, how you're supposed to do this and do that or whatever. But at the end of the day, whether it's being a stay-at-home mom, being a mom, being a wife, whatever the hell, at the end of the day, you create the environment that you want to create within that, no matter what it is. You know, I'm not saying that my way of being a stay-at-home mom is the way. I'm not saying anybody else's way is the way. What I'm saying is create that vision, or create the way that you want that to be. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, be the stay-at-home mom that you want to be. And that works for you and your family. Now, I'm not saying just say you want to be a stay-at-home mom just to have your feet kicked up. And that's another thing. I'm going on a tangent. My apologies. That's another thing. If anybody out there thinks that being a stay-at-home mom is me or any other stay-at-home mom sitting around here with our feet kicked up, drinking mimosas all day, you're crazy. You're crazy, because that's not what being a stay-at-home mom is. It's so much more than that. So much harder than that. So much more work than that. So just because I don't have a job where I'm clocking in, don't mean that I have a bunch of free time on my hand. Especially for a person like me. I'm running a business, I'm taking care of children, I'm homeschooling children, and now I have a podcast on top of having a husband. Like, just because I don't work a 9 to 5 or I'm not punching in somebody's clock doesn't mean that I'm around here twiddling my thumbs all day. And I'm pretty sure the same goes for any other stay-at-home mom. That don't mean that. So if you look at me or you look at any other stay-at-home mom, it's like, oh, it must be nice. Like, oh, well, you get to sit home. That don't mean I'm around here relaxing. That don't mean these moms out here relaxing. I don't got no maids. I don't got no nannies. That's not what that means. I'm working. I am working. And any other stay-at-home mom, she's working. So let's nip that in the bud. All right, can we get that? Be clear? Okay. I just had to say that. I just had to say that. But anyway, so we're gonna wrap this episode up. We can wrap this episode up, but I just wanted to get it out real quick that just because we stay at home mom or someone says she stay at home mom, don't think that she just relaxing, because that's not what it is. Our job is the most important job. All right, we're raising little peoples that are gonna go out into the world and do big things. All right, so don't think that we just around here twiddling our thumbs, got our feet kicked up, and we're just drinking mimosas and watching TV. That's not what being a stay-at-home mom is. At least not for me, and at least not for the stay-at-home moms that I do know. Okay? All right, because we're whole business owners and creatives, and we're doing a lot. All right? That's that. Secondly, if you are a stay-at-home mom and you're transitioning to a stay-at-home mom and you're a first-time stay-at-home mom, one, communicate with your spouse. Communicate with your spouse, your significant other, your husband. Communicate what you need. Communicate how you're feeling. Just communicate. Talk to your husband. Talk to your spouse. And let them know that you're feeling away, that you're feeling less than, that you're feeling stressed out. That way you have someone that can work with you in creating your version of being a stay-at-home mom that is not stressful. All right? That's 2. And 3, make time for yourself. I don't care if you got to put on the calendar. I put on the calendar. Because if I don't, I will forget. I'll be like, dang, I haven't taken myself on a date in a while. Maybe I should do that. No, put on your calendar. If you don't use a calendar, get a calendar and put it on your calendar. At least once a month. At least once a month. Go get your feet done. Take yourself to a nice dinner. Get dressed up. Get cute. Because if you're a stay at home, anything close to me, most times I'm in tights and a t-shirt. Or one of my big muumuu dresses. Get cute. Take yourself out. Do something for yourself. And I know sometimes that can be hard. But we have to do it. For our sanity. All right? All right. So I'm out of here. Thank you for joining in, listening to me rant and ramble. Say words, whatever. Thank you. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Rooted in Muddy Waters. If you would like to support me on any of my other projects, you can look at me. I just said that wrong. If you want to support me in any of my other projects, head over to my Instagram for The Cultivating Mom, at The Cultivating Mom. And you can also check out some of my products that I'm doing for my aromatherapy and herbal business. And that is Arapel Wellness at Arapel Wellness on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments, like, are you a stay-at-home mom? You think about being a stay-at-home mom? And what does what does your version of stay-at-home mom look like for you? Like, do you want to have your feet